Hello, everyone. I am Auntie Kadian, and here today I do have Lord Krishna with me, and we will be reading the wonderful book Portia Dreams, and it's written by Opal Palmer Adisa and illustrated by Wayne Powell. I must say that you guys can get a copy of this book at any of your leading bookstores, such as Sangster's Bookstore. You can also get it at Kingston Bookshop or any bookstores that are around you closest. It's about Portia Lucretia Simpson-Miller, or first female Jamaican Prime Minister, and also the first female Prime Minister for the Caribbean. She made history. But of course, this history, it all started with a dream. So let's get into Portia's Dreams, a journey of imagination and achievement. And I'll be reading aloud. It's a pretty long book. Nonetheless, we're gonna do it in two parts as best. And let's get straight into it. We're looking at Curious Portia. Her eyes followed the beautiful yellow and black caterpillar crawling on the leaf of the lime tree. Portia heard a rustle behind her and spun around to watch a mongoose dart into the bushes. She found a comfortable spot on the grass and lay on her back to gaze at the fluffy white clouds that floated across the sky. Her face as radiant as a full moon. 5-year-old Portia was a curious girl, full of laughter and confidence. She noticed everything around her and enjoyed chasing after chickens and goats. Portia lived in a house perched on top of a hill that gave a panoramic view of the valley and the mountain range. The peach and brown-colored house sat near orchards filled with mangoes, jackfruit, ackee, and guinea. She enjoyed eating them all. Also, she sat alone on the rocks near her house, staring peacefully at the nearby hills and valleys, making up songs and clapping her hands in a gentle rhythm. Sometimes Portia would become so engrossed in her daydreams that it would take a while before she heard her mother calling her by her pet name. Miss Ted, Miss Ted, where are you? As soon as Portia heard her mother's voice, she would run to her. Her voice rode the wind like a mental song. Yes, Mama Min, I'm here, Portia would say, hugging her mother, who would often pat her cheek and smile down at her. Portia spent hours observing the colors that surrounded her, the golden yellow of the sun and the dancing green leaves that filled her with joy. On this day, Portia took her mother's hand and together they skipped to the front of the house. Mama Min, what's the name of that mountain? Portia asked, pointing. That is the Good Hope Mountain. It shelters our community from heavy winds. The two stood still and gazed at the mountain. When Portia heard her mother breathe deeply, she imitated her, which caused her mother to chuckle before nudging Portia. The child loved to spend time alone with her mother, who taught her many things. She would point up and Mama Min would say, "That's the blue sky," and have Portia repeat after her, "That's the blue sky." They made a game of it. Portia pointed to the ground and Mama Min would say, "That's the red soil." Or if Portia pointed to a flower, her mother would say, "That's the trumpet-shaped red hibiscus." Sometimes Mama Min would point and Portia named the things. Mama Min told Portia the names of each plant and had her repeat them until she knew the names by heart. Come on, Miss Ted, let's go and pick some fruits, Portia's mother said one morning. She moved towards the back of the house with her usual long strides. Portia skipped alongside her. Hold this, please, Mama Min said, handing her daughter a basket. She turned and picked two large prickly green fruits and placed them in the basket that Portia clutched with both hands. What are these called, Mama Min? Portia asked when her mother took the basket from her. She ran her little fingers over the fruit, feeling the small spikes. These are sour sops, her mother replied. I'm going to use them to make juice for dinner, but you can also take the skin off and eat it just like that. Later, when I cut them, I'll let you taste the white meat inside. Do you know what color it is, boys and girls? Ladies and gents, what color is it?
On the outside, it is green. And in the inside, it's red.
Good, and it has some big seeds. That's soursop. Portia had been learning about the colors, but she remembered one of her brothers telling her that almost everything in nature is green. Green, 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 Portia squealed. You are too smart, Miss Ted, her mother beamed, kissing Portia on the forehead. Yes, they are green. Now I must go and prepare dinner. Portia watched her mother enter the house as she continued to wander around the yard. Earlier that morning, her father had picked ackee before he left for the field. Portia's mother had cleaned the ackee, separating the black seeds and scooping out the red membrane from the yellow fruit. Portia loved to play with the seeds, so now while her mother prepared the evening meal, she found an old milk can. She picked a buttercup, its yellow flower, cushioned by green leaves, and filled the can with the black ackee seeds she gathered and took them inside. This is for you, Mamma Mia, gifting the milk can bouquet to her mother. See, she said, pointing to each item. I love the black, green, and yellow. Mama Min took the can from her daughter, placed it on the table, then held Portia by the shoulder and stared into her eyes. Portia, you are your own person, she said and smiled before she turned back to her task. Although Portia wasn't sure what that meant, the way her mother said it made her feel good. She dashed back outside and continued her adventure around the yard, looking closely at everything and naming the things she saw. It's very amazing, boys and girls. That's chapter 1. So let's go to some questions now. What is Portia's pet name?
Ted.
Miss what?
Miss Ted.
Very good. What does Portia call her mother? Go ahead, Krishna.
Miss, no, she calls her Mama Min.
What?
Mama Min.
Mama Min. You have to speak up. All right. What darted into the bushes?
A mongoose.
Very good. Now, what is the mountain called that is close by that shelters the community from heavy winds? It starts with a G.
Good Hope Mountain.
Good Hope Mountain. Very good.
Shelters where they live from heavy winds.
Yes, very good. And what was the fruit that Portia's mother was picking with her and putting in the basket? Soursop, right? Great. So we're now at chapter 2, at home in Woodhall. Now, I must say the book overall has the illustrator Wayne Powell. However, all the images here were created by me, so you guys would have some level of visuals as I read. So the sun rose majestically each morning over Woodhall, St. Catherine. And I did some research, ladies and gents, boys and girls. It's actually in Old Arbor, changing from pale yellow to bright orange. So each morning over Woodhall, St. Catherine, the sun would change from pale yellow to bright orange. This was where Portia lived with her family. The rural folk in Woodhall farmed yam, cassava, sweet potatoes, and peas. They traded their goods with each other or sold them to buy flour, sugar, and meat. Many families raised goats, pigs, and chickens and made oil from dried coconuts. In Woodhall, neighbors looked out for each other, and there was always a good morning or some other greeting for anyone they passed on the streets. The house where Portia lived was perched on top of one of the community's many hills. It was home to 11 members of the family. That's a big family, boys and girls. They were a close family who ate, prayed, and worked together. Portia shared a room with her sisters who taught her things like how to tie her shoelaces. They told Anansi stories as they plaited each other's hair. Portia's brothers were protective and often chased away the lizards that frightened her. They gave her piggyback rides, went for walks, or waded in the river near the almond tree where it was cool and climbed on the smooth rocks that covered the ground. Portia loved to give and receive hugs, and if one of her siblings was upset or sad, she would stroke them on the back with a comforting, "It's okay, don't cry." She cried if one of her sisters was scolded and started to cry. So Portia is just a loving child. She hated to see others unhappy and tried to cheer up everyone who seemed sad. Although the siblings all got along, Portia was closest to her oldest brother, Ezekiah, who thought she was smart. Ted Roy, her youngest brother, who was 3 years older than Portia, taught her how to climb trees. "Come, Miss Ted, let's count," Ezekiah said one day, calling Portia by her pet name. "One is big brother Delroy. Two is one big sister Gerald. Three is Eileen, or second big sister. Four is me, Ezekiah, your second big brother. Five is Peggy, your third big sister. Six is Tedra, your fourth big brother. I will tell you a story about him when we are done. After Tedra is you, Portia Lucretia, your number 7. Then 8 is Panceline, your baby sister, who we call Apple. That's all the children. However, we can't forget the most important persons in our family. Papa Zedekiah Simpson is 9. 10 is Mama Min, who was born Etilin Tulloch. And 11 is Papa's father or grandfather James. Got that, Miss Ted? Ezekiah said as he rubbed Portia's head. I can just imagine what's happening here. I don't know if you guys can visualize, but I can just imagine, the love, the warmth that's happening. Now, let me tell you the story of the day you were born in this very house. I was at school, but Papa says this is what happened. Ted Roy was in the living room, and when he heard you cry for the first time, he jumped up and declared, "Miss Ted, come." Everyone laughed because they didn't know what he was talking about. But when Papa brought you, Ted Roy said, "Hello, Miss Ted. I'm happy you have come." Portia beamed and giggled. "Me too." She hugged Ezekiel, who tickled her, making her sputter, then laugh more. They both laughed before Ezekiel got serious again. "Let me hear you count to 10. Portia concentrated and counted on her fingers. Before long, she started to call her brothers and sisters by their place in the family. Third big sister or number 1 big sister, that became the family's joke. The siblings liked to compete to teach Portia as she learned quickly. She only had to hear something once to remember it. She loved being taught to do new things like how to wash dishes, set the table, write the letters of the alphabet. She did not give up, no matter how difficult the task. When she finally solved the problem, she would jump up and clap her hands. Very good. So from this, ladies and gents, boys and girls, you're seeing little Portia. She is determined, right? She loves to learn. She's hungry to learn, which is amazing, right? She's not going to give up. Many young children give up and they cry, right? So Krishna, what is this telling you not to do? Stand up and speak.
It is telling me that I should stop crying when something is hard for me, like when I can't turn on the washroom pipe, and I usually cry and ask my mother to do it, but I realize that I can just try again.
Good. So even when you get a maths work at school and you don't know how to do it, you just need to try to get it done. And that's for all of us. So when we're doing things, we have to really try to get it done. So quick questions. How many people lived in Portia's family?
11. And my teacher also taught to my classmates and I that there is a memory verse that says, don't give up.
Yes, don't give up, don't give in.
And always try and try again.
Very good. What is the name of the community Portia is from?
Woodhall.
Very good. And what parish is Woodhall?
St. Catherine.
Very good. Now, what work did the people in Woodhall do?
They did farmer was like working in the field.
I don't want you to think, Krishna. I want you to know. If they plant fruits and vegetables and they raise goats, pigs, and chickens, what would you call those people?
Farmers.
Farmers. Very good. All right. And Ezekiah was the closest older brother that Portia had. Who was the youngest brother that she had that she was closest to? Ted Roy. Yes, Ted Roy. What is the name of Portia's youngest sister?
Apple.
Very good, all right? Yes. All right, so let's go into chapter 3. P is for Papa and for Portia. So Papa said Portia was relentless. He often told her the story of when she was not yet 2 years old. Despite falling many times, she managed to climb into his rocking chair and sit back, clapping her hands. That Portia is a winner. What did her father say?
That Portia is a winner.
Do you think you can be a winner?
Yes, I do. And my name is also an Indian god's name. But my mother usually says it's not that really. And I know that I am a winner.
Good. Thank you for sharing. So you have to believe you are a winner and you will be a winner. So that Portia is a winner. Papa often bragged. He was the only one in the family who persistently called her by her proper name. The first time Portia wrote the letter P by herself, she waited by the gate until Papa came home from the field. When Portia saw Papa climbing up the hill, she ran to meet him. Papa, Papa, I waited all day for you. Come, Papa, come. Portia pleaded and took his hand. What gets you so excited, Miss B? Papa asked as he rested his machete by the fence and wiped his free hand on the leg of his pants. Give your papa a chance to come in through the gate. Okay, Portia repeated, still holding Papa's hand. She guided him to the spot where she had jotted the P. I wrote my name, she beamed. Her father stooped and traced the P with his finger. He turned to her. Did you really write that? Portia nodded. You're smart like light. One day you're going to do big things and make Mama and me proud, Papa said. P is for Portia and P is for Papa, Portia shouted, clapping her hands. That evening after supper, her father sat in the rocking chair on the veranda, his feet perched on the railing. Portia on his lap, Mama Bean sat in the other rocking chair with Portia's younger sister, Apple, in her lap. Two other sisters played jacks by the lanterns while her brother and their friends played with the cars and trucks they had made using the covers of old tin cans, nails, and sticks. They made a game of seeing whose car could go the fastest. Portia scrambled out of her papa's lap. Papa, I want to play car. As Portia moved towards the steps, her father gently lifted her and set her back on his lap. Little girls, don't play with cars, Papa told her. Portia wanted to ask why, but she knew not to oppose her father. She rotated her head and watched her brothers and their friends playing. They raced the cars and shouted at each other. The desire to join them swelled in Portia like a balloon. As she sat in her papa's lap, the cool evening breeze dancing over her skin, Portia wondered why girls could not do the same things as boys. Her brothers were always out on the road or somewhere else having fun. She and her sisters were not allowed to be on the road unless they were going to school or church. Girls should have fun and drive cars too, Portia thought, and she vowed that when she grew up, she would not let being a girl stop her from doing important things. Portia looked at the sky. The full moon seemed to wink at her. She climbed down from her papa's lap and went to sit beside her sisters on the step. When I grow up, I'm going to have my own car and go on the road, Portia declared. Her sister Eileen glanced at her. I believe you will, Misty, Eileen said. And as she made space for Portia to sit next to her. So, ladies and gents, boys and girls, I want you guys to understand that Portia was born December 12, 1945. So, back then in the 1950s, 1940s, those times, and years after, before even independence, after independence, there were specific rules in Jamaica for ladies, for girls, for boys, right? So females overall, and we'll say females in this aspect of things, were meant to stay home and take care of the home, and the men or the males in this regard would go to the fields and take care of that. So that was what was happening then. So that's the reason why they're like, listen, you're not supposed to play with cars. Girls should stay home and only go to church and school, and boys can go on the road. And of course, Portia, she wanted to know why, but of course, back then, when you look at history and you talk to folks who are older, they will tell you that when your parents spoke or you hear older people speak, you cannot ask questions. So that would have been a challenge for her. So we're going to chapter 4 now. And we will be looking at Portia goes to school. So now she's going into grade 1, right? So long before Portia started school, she would watch her brothers and sisters as they got ready for school, and Portia would beg her mother to let her go with them. Her pleasing testified after Ted Roy started school, and she was left home with her baby sister Apple. She would often stand by the gate and watch her siblings leave for school, tears streaming down her cheeks. In the evenings, when her siblings came from school, Portia would be waiting at the gate after dinner. She would sit quietly with them while they did their homework around the dining table. She dreamed about the day she would go to school too. At last that day came. Portia's navy blue uniform was starched and ironed. Her shoes shone brightly. Her mother had washed and plaited her hair and pinned her long navy hair ribbons to her uniforms. Portia could not contain her excitement. She practically bounced around the house in the days leading up to the big day. That night, well, the night before Portia's first day at Marley Hill Primary, Mama Mean put her to bed early. She sat on the edge of the bed and kissed her on her forehead. Portia crinkled her nose and breathed in the smell of thyme that lingered on her mother's dress from cooking dinner early. Mama Min's palm on Portia's cheek was soft and warm like freshly baked bread. Listen good, she whispered in Portia's ear. Tomorrow a whole world is going to open up to you. Pay attention to your teacher and don't talk back. I feel in my heart that you're going to make a difference in this world, Miss Ted. I am going to make you proud, Portia said determinedly. Hugging her mother, they hugged for a long time. Then Mama Min said, sleep tight. The next morning, Papa didn't go to the field early as usual. Instead, he put on his good pair of pants, took Portia's hand, and walked her to kindergarten while her brothers and sisters stayed home. School did not start for the older children until the next day. Papa whistled his favorite mental tune as they walked. Portia had so many questions, but for the first time, she could not form the words. She did not know what to expect, but she was excited. She wanted to kick off her shoes and run around barefooted as she often did, but she knew that was not allowed. At the school gate, children were running around and shouting. Portia recognized a few of them. She felt her blouse pressed against her back, and the morning heat made her scalp feel prickly. Papa, who are all these children? Portia looked up at her father. You'll learn who they are soon. Don't worry your head about that now. Just pay attention to the teacher, Papa said before kissing her forehead and hurrying away. For the first time, Portia felt totally alone. She looked out on the road, but Papa had disappeared. She looked at the playground as the children running around grew blurry. Water sprang to Portia's eyes. How many of us can relate to this? Like, you're going to a school for the first time or you're going somewhere for the first time and you're so excited, and then the day comes and you're like, oh my God, and you feel, oh my God, I'm so alone. Like, have you ever felt like that? Boys and girls, I know you all can relate. A lot of us, our first day would have been a lot of crying. Yes. And for adults, when you're going to a new job, a new school, you're like, oh my God, I'm alone. Yes, you're going there to make an impact. You're going there to change the world, to make a worldly difference. But you get to feel alone from time to time. All right, so let's continue. Papa, come. She called, straining her neck to see beyond the school gate. She looked up and down the road. When she turned around, the playground was empty, and the classroom doors were all closed. Portia clutched her slate and bolted. Running until she got home, sweaty and out of breath, she slumped into her father's rocking chair. Her family discovered her there a little later, fast asleep. When her father came home for lunch and heard, he held Portia close. Portia, why did you leave school? I missed you, Papa. Everybody was at home. Well, listen here. Papa's voice was firm. You have to go to school and stay there. You're going to be an important person, and important people have lots of things to do. Portia did not know what he meant, but the words important and know lots of things and lots of things to do made her feel that she had to be careful. Like when Mama Min gave her the basket to collect the eggs from the chicken coop without breaking any. Papa cupped her face and stared into her eyes. Promise me that you will stay at school and learn. Don't worry, Papa. I'll be first in my class. Portia looked in his eye and promised. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, I hope you guys are understanding that Portia's family, as from a tender age, they supported her. Boys and girls, be encouraged. You have to believe in yourself. Portia is a little girl, but she's so confident, regardless of everything. And she may not have all the answers, because again, she's a little girl, right? She's pretty young, and she's 5. And she's not going to school. She doesn't have all the answers as yet. But she knows when someone says something that sounds good, that means like, oh my, I can do this, right? So she's willing to make those promises and keep her head high. So boys and girls, ladies and gents, please remember, you are a winner. You are enough. You are worthy. You can, you will, and you should aim to make a difference in life, in this world, right? So now we're looking at chapter 5 and we're going to pause at chapter 6 and then we'll have the next episode for chapter 6 to 12. So chapter 5, Portia learns the rules. The next day, Portia went to school. Her siblings walked with her to the kindergarten playground. Portia clutched her slate as she watched the children dash about. She refused to join them, not wanting to get sweaty before school started. So I did not mention, so a slate back then is something that you write on, and once you're finished writing that lesson, then you would have to erase it. So that's what it is like. So back then, a lot of children didn't have books that they carried and they wrote in. And if they had books, they would typically be half of a book, especially if you were coming from a poorer background. If you were coming from an affluent family or a middle class family, you'd have like a book that you could write in. But many children back then had slates because their parents, depending on also the number of children that they had, and I'm just talking in general here, would get them slates instead of books. So the bell rang and instantly a hush fell over the playground. Portia looked around. A few teachers appeared, but Portia didn't know where she was to go. A stout, beaming woman approached Portia and extended her hand. So a stout meaning a lady on the heavier side means she's fat in layman terms. You must be Portia Lucretia Simpson. I'm Miss Johnson. I taught all your older brothers and sisters. Come along now. Portia looked around and saw Tedroy. He waved to her and she wanted to run to him. But he was in another class. Portia remembered what her mother said before kissing her goodbye that morning. Don't follow anyone, let others follow you. Like the lessons her parents and her family has taught her are lessons not just for Portia back then in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, but are lessons that are important now. So boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, it's important for us to be leaders, be born leaders. Don't follow people because people can lead you astray. So let others follow you. And this is what I teach Krishna. Let others follow you to do the right thing, not the wrong thing. So don't be a leader and lead people down into a pit or a dungeon. So Mama Min's words made Portia want to jump and clap like when she was at the Baptist church on Sundays and the sounds from the congregation echoed through the valley. Miss Johnson was wearing a navy blue dress trimmed with white. She led Portia to a door where other children were lining up. This will be your new home, Miss Johnson said. Portia's eyes widened. She didn't want a new home. She loved the home she had with her family. So again, Portia is small. She's not understanding, right? She patted Miss Johnson's hand. What is it, Portia? Miss, I don't want this to be my home. Miss Johnson smiled. This is your school home, but you get to go to your family home after school. Portia sighed with relief. They entered the classroom and Miss Johnson led Portia to the front bench. The other children marched in and soon Portia was joined by a boy who sat in the middle and a girl who sat other end of the bench. Miss Johnson stood tall in front of the class and said they would sing the ABCs and then they could play. When she asked who knew their ABCs, Portia shouted, I know my ABCs. Almost all the other children shouted too. Now, class, one of the first rules you must learn is not to shout out. When I ask a question, raise your hand like this. Miss Johnson held her right hand high above her head. When you are called on, you talk. Otherwise, you listen to the others. Let's practice now. Who knows their ABCs? Several children shouted out, me, but Portia raised her hand. Miss Johnson looked at her and smiled. It's such a beautiful thing when we think back on when we first went to school. I can't remember what my first day at school was like. That's a long, long time ago. But I remember Krishna's first day at school. Well, her first 2 weeks at prep school was, oh my God, it was bawling. That means a lot of crying, a lot of tantrums. When she was going to Glen Perpinsent and the teachers would have to hold her and, by the time, so she would be okay until she reached up at the steps and the teachers would be taking her to, allowing her to wash her hand, and sanitize before she could go around because again, it was during COVID. And Krishna, once she did that, she just started to cry and she would just be crying. So what I would have to do is literally just have her go up, and when she go up, I'd have to quickly just rush away while she's in the line to wash her hands, or because they had to wash their hands dry it and then they sanitize. I think that was the procedure there, if memory serves me right. And then I would rush to the car and then be driving up to see her go around. And once she saw me, she would just be crying. And when she started New York City prep, that was something else. This child was fighting off the principal, fighting off the teacher, and that went on for 2 weeks. It was, oh my, it was something else. Like, if I was walking away, leave her, she would run behind me and she would be fighting. I remember the principal lifted her and she was just fighting the tail. Like, oh my, I felt so embarrassed. But I don't know, what was your experience like if you remember your first day or your first day for your children, for the adults that are listening? Like, what was it like? Because a lot of us are like Portia, we're always excited, as I said. And then when the day comes, you're like, oh my God. Ooh. Right, so let's go to chapter 6. Dinner time is family time. On our first day of school, Mama Min cooked Portia's favorite meal of stew peas and rice with yellow yam. The children usually took turns saying grace at dinner time during the week. On her first day of school, Portia said grace. Thank you, Lord, for my new school where I learned lots of things. Thanks for my family and this nice dinner Mama Min cooked. And thank you for Miss Johnson. Amen. That's a powerful prayer, right? Very simple, but very powerful. Papa, her grandfather, patted Portia's arm and nodded his head in approval. He wanted to know all about Portia's school activities. When dinner was over, Papa asked Portia what she had learned that day. Portia raised her hand high above her head. I learned that I have to put up my hand like this when I want the teacher to call on me. Sometimes when you put up your hand, teacher still won't call on you if you always know the answers. Ezekiah replied, and remember, Ezekiah is her older brother that she's closest to. So he's not the big brother, but he's the big older brother. So he's the second oldest brother. Portia raised her hand, but her siblings weren't paying any attention. Their mother clapped her hands. Quiet, please. Miss Ted wants to say something. With her hand still raised, Portia spoke slowly. Teacher put me in the front on a bench with a boy named Linton and a girl named Hoplet. So you made 2 new friends. Jarrell prodded. Portia nodded. The children cleaned their plates and talked on top of one another as a cool evening breeze blew through the open window, perfuming the room with the smell of jasmine. Okay, quiet now. Papa's voice raised above the others as he tapped on the table with his fingers. Each of you will have a turn to share one thing about your day. But now I want to hear from Portia. Easing back his chair and leaning towards Portia, Papa asked, "What did you like most about school?" Portia felt the eyes of everyone in the room on her. "Singing the ABCs," she replied, yarning, suddenly feeling tired. "Time for bed for you little ones," Mama Min said. "Tomorrow is another day." "Mama Min, can we all sing the ABCs before I get ready for bed?" Portia smiled at her mother. "1, 2, 3, Papa said, leading the way, and the family burst out in the song, singing the ABCs not once but twice, and Portia felt certain that she had the best family in the whole world. The girls cleared the table and washed the dishes. Papa told the boys to clean everyone's shoes. Jarell helped Portia to bathe and brush her teeth. She said her prayers, then got into bed. She hugged her sister. "Miss Johnson says the world is big and round. I am going to meet people from all over the world one day," Portia pronounced before she fell asleep. So, ladies and gents, there are so many lessons to be learned from Portia's dreams. Portia is not just a confident girl. She has big, wild dreams, people would say. But guess what? Her big, wild dreams are going to become a reality. So, ladies and gents, boys and girls, you have to have an imagination. You have to dream and work hard to achieve them. What did you learn from the story that I've read so far, Krishna?
I learned three rules that no, three things. Called always don't follow people, follow yours. Let them follow you.
Let them follow you to do what?
The right thing.
Okay. So you have to be a leader.
Yes. And we should always consider the family dinner time as family time.
Very good. What else?
Nothing else.
You should follow rules.
Yes.
Very
We
good.
should always say our grace and our prayers so God will enter our hearts and not the devil.
Very good. Right. So a lot of stuff, ladies and gents, have also changed. So thank you very much for sharing, Krishna, from what happened in the 40s and in the 50s to now. So if you think about it, back then a lot of people were farmers, but times have evolved, so parents are not just farmers. Boys and girls aren't just staying at home, we're just going to school, taking care of the home, going to the farms. People have different jobs, right? The families are not that big. No, families are mainly single parent households, siblings household, nuclear family. You will still have extended families or large families, yes, right? But we don't find those that prominent as much, no. But it's a very good book. I have realized that Portia was a very humble little girl. She was very loving. She loved her family. That was something that I definitely could see and relate. I hope you guys enjoyed this portion of the story. We will return with episode 2, where I'll be reading chapter 7 through to chapter 12. Have yourself a good one. See you guys soon. That's all from Auntie Katie and Anne.
Krishna.
Bye, everyone. Bye.